Danny. Thanks for choosing updates at noon with me, Renee Fong. And today's headlines: Government mulls independent investigation body for enforcement agencies. Another 5 highways to implement open toll payment system. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim has instructed the Attorney General to review proposal on the establishment of an independent body to investigate enforcement agencies whenever an allegation or report is lodged against them. He said this would ensure greater transparency and accountability among enforcement agencies when an investigation is conducted.
Untuk semua badan penguatkuasaan, ya, kalau ada pertuduhan khas terhadap pegawai SPRM atau immigration atau custom atau polis, maka ada badan bebas, ya, dalam bentuk sama ada Suruhanjaya, saya belum pasti, tapi sudah ada arahan kepada Jabatan Perkembangan Negara untuk mengemukakan cadangan supaya badan-badan penguasaan ini tidak menyiasat sendiri, tetapi ada satu badan lain yang bebas yang akan menyiasat. Cuma saya nak tekankan di sini, bila timbul isu IPCMC itu, yang dipertikaikan oleh pihak polis ialah mengapa dituju khusus kepada mereka, pada permasalahan itu harus melibatkan semua agensi penguatkuasaan.
The Prime Minister was responding to a question posed by Puchong MP Gobind Singh Dio on what steps are being taken by the government to ensure that any investigations involving officers from enforcement agencies are conducted without internal interference. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Anwar said the government is open to the investigation on political funds, adding that there are investigations involving government MP. However, the Prime Minister stressed that all quarters must understand the law on political funding or donations and its relations with corruption.
Tidak ada percanggahan dari sudut undang-undang untuk mana-mana orang derma kepada parti politik. Yang dikaitkan adalah soal kepentingan ataupun unsur rasuah kerana pemberian kontrak, dan orang yang memperoleh kontrak itu sama ada dikehendaki atau secara apa juga maksud dia, memberikan dana kepada syarikat individu atau parti yang dikaitkan dengan individu berkenaan.
Terima kasih Tuan Ketua. Soalan tambahan saya.
The Premier was speaking in reply to a question asked by Rantau Panjang MP Datuk Siti Zailah Muhammad Yusuf during Prime Minister's question time in the Dewan Rakyat today. He added that the government is still reviewing proposal to separate the duties of Attorney General and public prosecutors in effort to prevent selective prosecution and political interference. 5 more highways have agreed to implement an open toll payment system that will begin in mid-September. In a Facebook post, Works Minister Datuk Seri Alexander Nantalinggi said this would make the number of highways to use the system into 11, allowing users to pay for tolls using their credit and debit cards. The highway are the Damansara Puchong Expressway LDP, the Sprint Highway, the Shah Alam Expressway, the Smart Tunnel and the Kuala Lumpur Putrajaya Highway MAX. The Minister also informed the decision on the location for the implementation of the Proof of Concept POC for the multi-lane fast-flow MLFF system has been made, with the Sungai Besi Highway being chosen as the first POC location. He added the POC will be conducted at the end of October to evaluate the MLFF system before it is implemented on all highways in the country. The Ministry is also currently in negotiations with other concession companies to obtain another highway for the implementation of the MLFF POC, adding the decision for the second POC location will be announced soon. The Economy Ministry has launched the Kita Jaga application, which is a price checker that can display the daily price of each item according to a specific locality. Minister Rafizi Ramli said the Kita Jaga application allows people to buy wisely with the price data at their fingertips. The initiative was the result of a collaboration between the ministry and a local organisation, Kita Jaga, which developed the application and its features.
Yang memberi ruang kepada pengguna-pengguna untuk membandingkan harga, boleh juga membantu ke arah menambahkan keupayaan memilih itu, yang jika berjaya dihidupkan secara besar-besaran, dia sudah tentu akan membantu mewujudkan persaingan harga yang lebih baik.
He added the ministry will start with the price of grocery items because most of the price increases are concentrated in this category and expand to other categories for the people's use. The Ramadan Bazaar BR, which is the latest product under the Payung Rahman initiative of the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Cost of Living KPDN, is implemented in 38 locations nationwide. According to its Minister Datuk Sri Salahuddin Ayub, the implementation of the BRR is a result of cooperation by traders through engagement with KPDN in offering menu rahmah prices as an effort to reduce the cost of living for the people.
Kita ada lebih kurang 38 lokasi bazar Ramadan Rahmah yang kita telah setakat hari yang kelima ini kita berjaya adakan di seluruh negara dengan harga minima RM5 ke bawah dan juga ada yang special macam lamb shank tadi itu memang makanan yang high end lah. Biasa dijual daripada harga 50 lebih. Tapi hari ini mereka jual dengan harga ada yang package 30 lebih, ada yang package 40 lebih. Itu bergantung kepada menu yang mereka meniagakan.
Some of the other BRRs are the Rahmah Food Truck Ramadan Bazaar in Lorong Tuanku Abdul Rahman, Kuala Lumpur, Bayan Baru Ramadan Bazaar in Penang, Ipoh People Walk Ramadan Bazaar, Perak, and Binjai Rendah Ramadan Bazaar in Marang, Terengganu. Visitors to the bazaars can visit stalls with menu Rahmah stickers to get buka puasa food items at reasonable prices. The minister was met after the launch of the BRR at the Precinct 14 Ramadan Bazaar, Putrajaya. On complaints about the prices of food sold at Ramadan Bazaars, he said the KPDN had received 99 complaints so far, and KPDN enforcement officers always carried out monitoring operations to prevent traders from selling food at arbitrary prices. The police arrested 27 individuals suspected of being involved in a drug trafficking syndicate and turned 4 units of an apartment in Jinjang Baru into a hub for their criminal activities. Acting Kuala Lumpur Police Chief Datuk Yahaya Othman said all male suspects aged between 23 and 40 were arrested between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m. yesterday. In a statement issued last night, Datuk Yahaya said as a result of the arrest, the police have successfully busted a drug trafficking syndicate that has been active in the Sentul area for the past 6 months. The police also seized 59.44 grams of methamphetamine, 2 cars, a motorcycle, jewelleries and 603 ringgit in cash. The results of the urine test found that all the suspects tested positive for methamphetamine and had drug-related criminal records and would be remanded today. The case is being investigated under Section 39B as well as Section 39 subsection A subsection 1, Section 12 subsection 2, Section 15 subsection 1 subsection A of the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952 and Section 3 subsection 1 of the Dangerous Drugs Act, Measures Special Preventive Measures 1985 and Part 3 of the Dangerous Drugs for Feature of Property Act 1988. Still to come, government to announce new investment this week. Stay tuned. 12 more victims of job scam syndicates in Cambodia have been rescued. In announcing this, Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim said the Malaysian embassy in Phnom Penh would be arranging the release of all 12 individuals today.
Dia lawatan substantif lah, maknanya Perdana Menteri Hun Sen itu menetapkan bukan saja soal protokol kunjung hormat, itu biasa, tapi perbincangan yang benar-benar substantif, dan termasuk yang kita bincang soal job scam ini. Dan maklumat yang terbaru ialah selain daripada yang diumumkan tadi, ada 12 yang baru telah pun dapat dibebaskan.
The Prime Minister said this in a media conference at the end of his one-day official visit to Cambodia last night. Earlier at a media conference with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen, Datuk Sri Anwar said that a total of 287 Malaysians who were victims of the syndicate had been brought back home. Meanwhile, Malaysian Ambassador to Cambodia, Datuk Eldin Husaini Muhammad Hashim, told Berdama that based on the information received, all 12 individuals were on the list of people reported missing. He said embassy personnel would be heading to the victim's location to begin the repatriation process. Meanwhile, Datuk Sri Anwar reveals that a new investment representing the government's highest commitment will be announced this week. The Prime Minister said the announcement will be made in conjunction with his 3-day official visit to China beginning on Wednesday. In a gathering with Malaysians residing in Cambodia at the Malaysian Embassy in Phnom Penh yesterday, the Prime Minister said his administration would ensure the continued growth of the country's economy and that Malaysia is able to attract investments. Therefore, he said all related aspects, including infrastructure and incentives, would be enhanced in addition to focusing on the digitalisation aspect.
Bila kita ada perubahan ini, maka kita boleh tarik, dan pelabur terbesar ialah dari Amazon. Yang baru-baru AWS itu memilih Malaysia, walaupun insentif diberikan beberapa negara jiran itu cukup menarik, tapi dia pilih Malaysia, satu perubahan yang sangat meyakinkan.
Furthermore, Datuk Sri Anwar said the government wants government-linked companies GLCs to be more transparent and focused rather than competing against the private sector. Coming up in the foreign front, 6 killed in Nashville school shooting. A heavily armed 28-year-old woman killed 3 children and 3 staffs at a private elementary school in Nashville Monday before being shot dead by police in the latest outburst of gun violence to shock the United States. Armed with at least 2 assault rifles and a handgun, the shooter entered the Christian Covenant School from a side door before opening fire.
Patience of an aggressor at the Covenant.
The assailant, who police said was believed to be a former student at the school, fired multiple shots as she advanced through the building. Officers were on the scene within about 15 minutes of receiving the first emergency call around 10 a.m., engaging the shooter, who returned fire before she was shot dead. School shootings are alarmingly common in the United States, where the proliferation of firearms has soared in recent years, though female shooters are extremely rare. There was no initial indication of a motive for the Nashville attack. President Joe Biden described the latest shooting as sick and said gun violence was tearing the nation's soul as he urged Congress to pass a ban on the assault weapons commonly used in mass shootings. Police spokesman said officials were still working to identify the 3 students and 3 adults killed in the attack, as well as the shooter. Rescuers and neighbours were searching for nearly 50 people reported missing after a landslide triggered by months of heavy rainfall killed at least 7 in Ecuador's south on Monday. The mudslide happened late on Sunday night, burying dozens of homes and injuring 23 people. The government's communications secretariat revised the initial confirmed death toll down from 16 in the village of Alausi in Chimborazo province, some 300 kilometers south of the capital. Rescuers and civilians were seen on Monday trying to clear debris by hand to get to any survivors. Ecuador's President Guillermo Lasso said on Twitter that firefighters from neighboring areas had been rushed to the village off to attend to the affected citizen. The government said it had mobilized the National Police, Armed Forces, the Health Ministry and the Red Cross to help with the rescue efforts. Since the start of the year, heavy rains in Ecuador have caused the deaths of 22 people, destroyed 72 homes and damaged more than 6,900. The downpours have caused close to 1,000 dangerous events, such as landslides and flooding. Sunday's landslide came just over a week after 15 people, including a Peruvian, were killed when a strong quake struck in Ecuador's southwestern border region in Peru. Hamza Yusuf, the first Muslim leader of a major UK political party, faces an uphill battle to revive Scotland's drive for independence following the long tenure of his close ally, Nicola Sturgeon. The new and youngest Scottish National Party SNP leader, 37, says his own experience as an ethnic minority means he will fight to protect the rights of all minorities. The Glasgow-born Yusuf took his oath in English and Urdu when he was first elected to the Scottish Parliament in 2011, before progressing to become the first Muslim to serve in the devolved government's cabinet. He has been hailed by his supporters as a polished communicator who can unite the party as support stagnates for the SNP's central policy, Independence for Scotland. Despite the UK government's opposition to a new referendum and a Supreme Court setback, Yusuf vowed in his victory speech Monday to deliver independence in this generation.
That I'm forever thankful that my grandparents made the trip from Punjab to Scotland over 60 years ago. As immigrants to this country who knew barely a word of English, they could not have imagined in their wildest dreams that their grandson would one day be on the cusp of being the next First Minister of Scotland.
US Vice President Kamala Harris met with Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo on Monday, bringing an aid package to shore up security, economic and development cooperation as part of a three-nation African tour. The trip to Ghana, Tanzania and Zambia until 2nd April follows a December summit hosted by President Joe Biden in Washington with leaders from Africa, where Washington hopes to balance the rising influence of China and Russia. After a brief meeting at the presidential palace in the capital, Accra, Akufo-Addo and Harris said the visit would strengthen ties and opportunities with historic partner Ghana, playing down concerns the trip was motivated only by countering Chinese investments.
President Biden and I have made clear that the United States is strengthening our partnerships across the continent of Africa. And we are guided not by what we can do for Africa, but what we can do with Africa and our African partners on this continent.
Struggling with an economic crisis, burgeoning debt and inflation of over 50%, Ghana has agreed a $3 billion loan deal with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Ghana's finance minister also returned this month from a trip to China, where the two governments discussed debt issues. In sports, fully fit Harimau Malaya ready for Hong Kong challenge. Stay with us. Ahead of tonight's Tier 1 international friendly match between Malaysia and Hong Kong, national head coach Kim Pan-gon remains optimistic that the Harimau Malaya squad is now at its best level of fitness following the match against Turkmenistan last week.
Last 2 days, we had a very good recovery session. And yesterday we start to prepare something, planning for a game against Hong Kong. So yeah, I think will be a good game. We prepare well. We try to deliver a good game for the spectator for tomorrow.
Pangong also hinted that he would make a change by giving a chance to players who were not selected to face Turkmenistan last week. Tonight's match is the second meeting between Malaysia and Hong Kong in 9 months after Pangong's squad defeated them 2-0 during a Tier 1 international friendly match at the National Stadium in Bukit Jalil in June last year. Before playing Malaysia, Hong Kong, under the guidance of the Norwegian-born coach Jon Andersen, drew 1-1 with Singapore at the Mongkok Stadium in Hong Kong last Thursday. Antonio Conte's increasingly fractious relationship with Tottenham Hotspur came to an end with the Premier League club announcing they had parted ways with the Italian on Sunday. And with Conte officially exiting the club, reports were rife of who will succeed the Italian. Julian Nagelsmann, who was sacked by Bayern Munich this week, is considered the favourite for the job, while Mauricio Pochettino, who was fired in 2019 just months after leading the club to the Champions League final, is also tipped for a possible return. Other names who have been mentioned are Eintracht Frankfurt coach Oliver Glasner, Celtic's Ange Postecoglou, former Spain and Barcelona coach Luis Enrique, as well as ex-Real Madrid boss Zinedine Zidane. In the meantime, Conte's assistant Christian Stellini, who stood in for several games while Conte was recovering from surgery, takes over the first team, supported by former Spurs midfielder Ryan Mason until the end of the season. Mason was interim manager after Jose Mourinho left the club in 2021, and some bookmakers are also tipping the former midfielder to become the next permanent appointment. Chelsea had an overall net loss of £121.3 million for 2021-22 due to extraordinary expenses and loss of revenue after sanctions were imposed on previous owner Roman Abramovich. Chelsea were not allowed to sell tickets, resulting in a loss of revenue, while their operational spend was also curtailed due to government restrictions until the sale was completed at the end of May. Russian owner Abramovich put the club up for sale in early March last year following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. UK government sanctions on Abramovich had also complicated the sale process. During this period, the club was restricted in a number of areas, including, but not limited to, its ability to sell match day and season tickets, sell merchandise, accept event bookings, as well as sign contracts with players and commercial sponsorship partners, which collectively resulted in extraordinary expenses and loss of revenue. Chelsea were bought by an investment group led by American businessman Todd Boehly and Clarlac Capital, who have invested more than €600 million in player transfers across 2 windows. The club are 10th in the Premier League, but also through to the Champions League quarterfinals, where they face reigning champions Real Madrid next month. Brazilian FA CBF President Ednaldo Rodrigues has revealed that Real Madrid coach Carlo Ancelotti would be an obvious choice to fill Brazil's vacant managerial position if he becomes available at the end of the European season. During a media interview recently, Ednaldo Rodrigues acknowledged that the 63-year-old Italian manager is his main target and everyone's favorite to take charge of Brazil. The team's last coach, Tite, left the job after they were shockingly knocked out of last year's World Cup by Croatia in the quarter-finals. Ancelotti was the man of the moment the entire week in the Brazil team changing room in Morocco, with several players like Vinicius Jr., Edison, Rodrigo and Casemiro speaking highly of the Italian to reporters. Despite speaking highly about the Italian, Rodrigues pointed out that they should be careful and respect due to process, as Ancelotti is under contract contract with Real Madrid until 2024. But according to Rodriguez, Ancelotti, FIFA has already caught on in Brazil too. He said that no formal contract or approach was made by the Brazilian FA so far with Ancelotti or any other manager, and that they will start to talk to the candidates in mid-April with the objective of announcing their new manager by the end of May. FIFA President Gianni Infantino said it was important to have stability in soccer after renewing a memorandum of understanding with the European Club Association ECA in Budapest on Monday. According to FIFA and ECA, as part of the agreement, FIFA's compensation paid to clubs that release players for the Men's World Cup will be increased by nearly 70% to $355 million for the 2026 and 2030 tournaments. The club benefits program affords clubs a share of national team competition revenues in return for releasing players, and also protects clubs in case their players are injured on international duty. The previous amount earmarked for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups was $209 million. Chairman of the ECA, Nasser Al-Khelaifi, also celebrated the signing, saying it benefited European clubs.
Very delighted to sign our MOU until 2030. As clubs, honestly, we cannot be more proud. This will benefit everyone, the clubs, ECA members, non-members, and the clubs never have distribution like now. They will never have any say also in their future, in their financial, in their sports like now. So we cannot be more happy than today.
Australian driver Daniel Ricciardo has made a spectacular return to his own backyard, taking a Red Bull Formula One car for a spin across some of the country's most iconic locations. Ricciardo, who is now a reserve driver for Red Bull after being dropped by McLaren, jumped into the 2011 championship-winning RB7 car for a high-octane road trip through the outback. The 33-year-old was joined by Enduro Motorsport greats Toby Price and Daniel Sanders, as well as aerobatic pilot Matt Hall and supercars champion Shane van Gisbergen for a series of stunning drives. The adventure started in the Wild West before heading to Seacliff Bridge and finishing at Australia's most famous racetrack, Mount Panorama. Ricciardo's return to his country coincides with the Australian Grand Prix, which rolls into town later this week.
Kecemasan, boleh saya bantu?
Hello, there's been a motorcycle accident here. Maybe an elephant ran it over.
Sir, there is fire accident at the address number 5 Jalan Tembika, Shah Alam.
PGO from FRT Shah Alam, there was no fire accident here. Over.
MERS 999. Use it wisely.
And that ends today's updates at noon. Wrapping up with a reminder of our top stories. Government mulls independent investigation body for enforcement agencies. And before we go, we would like to announce that beginning 1st of April, our evening edition will be on air at 8:30 p.m. on saluran Berita RTM. I'm Renee Fong. Stay tuned to TV2 and Salam Malaysia Madani.